Hello, everyone. Sufit here. I'm here today with Charles B. Ticker, estate mediator. Charles, we've got a lot of viewers who are starting to consider their estate plan. And I know that you've been a litigator for over 40 years. You're an estate mediator. You focus on sibling estate disputes. So what if you had a situation in front of you where a testator, let's say a father, leaves a $500,000 cottage to his son Billy and $500,000, let's say GIC or cash amount to daughter Betty. And one of them is not happy. One of them is considering taking the other to court. These are equal gifts, aren't they? Why is there an issue?
Well, they may be equal the day the will was made if the cottage is worth 500 and there's a $500,000 gift. But no thought in this plan has been given to what happens down the road at the time of death. What is that cottage going to be worth? The $500,000 is always $500,000. So Betty's going to get that, but the cottage could be worth to Billy over $1 million at the time of death. So I would think in this scenario, if anyone's going to be taking someone to court, it's going to be Betty taking Billy to court.
And what about the, would there be emotional issues involved in this as well?
Well, estate planning for cottages is probably the most difficult thing that a lawyer can do. I mean, I used to do some estate planning and I got out of it because I'd rather fight over wills than draft wills. But yeah, we all know, it's like the commercials for that credit card, it's priceless, all the memories of time at the cottage as a kid. And so there's so much emotions tied to it. And parents really need to have that discussion, I think, with their kids while they're alive to see if they're even interested in the cottage. They may pick the wrong kid. So it makes it a very difficult asset to plan for. And people who do this on their own and do these homemade wills, they're just courting disaster. They really need to seek a lawyer who specializes in this kind of work.
Yeah, so I mean, you talked about the emotion on the positive side, but what if the cottage is a money pit and it's actually a liability, and even though on paper it's worth 500,000, but it could need a ton of work to make it even usable. Remember that movie about that? So I guess that could also be an issue. What would there be any other issues, like perhaps tax treatment differences in this kind of a scenario?
Well, yes, that's a real sticking problem. But you can't avoid death and taxes. And depending on the number of properties that the deceased owns, but assuming they have a family home and then they have a recreational property, the cottage, only one of those properties is going to be exempt in Canada from capital gains tax. So in many cases, the cottage is going to, there's going to be a deemed disposition of or sale of that cottage on death, whether it's sold or not. And there will be capital gains taxes arising from that. And as we are hearing now in Canada, the federal government is proposing to increase the amount of capital gains that will be included for the calculation of capital gains tax from 50% to 2/3. So that is going to cause a huge tax bill. And the problem that we see in a lot of these cases is no planning has been done. So there's not even enough cash to pay the tax. So you have the scenario where Betty, who was expecting to get $500,000, all of a sudden is finding out that some of that money is going to pay the tax bill on Billy's cottage because a proper plan wasn't done. So that could create some litigation for sure.
All right, there you have it. Our guest today has been Charles B. Ticker, estate mediator. Charles, thank you very much.
My pleasure.